Welcome everybody. I'm Ozerka.
And I'm Julie.
And today we will present you our project Fathers and Daughters, which we completed last year in India. Just like 1 year ago we were working on it. And it considers the relationship between fathers and daughters, and also the incest in the family, the sexual abuse of children, and how the family deals with it, how the characters, the roles transform with this memory, how do different sides deal with this memory. And this process was triggered when we were teaching in a school in India, in a Buddha school. And the Sabadi school, maybe some of you know, it's a famous Buddha school. And we learned that the founder is in fact a sexual abuser of children. And there was a very disturbing, nightmarish process. And we were kind of the first-hand witnesses of the inability of society to deal with these conditions. Like almost no countries in the world have the muscles to deal with these conditions, to protect children in this condition. So it was a difficult and disturbing process. And after we started hearing a lot of similar stories. And one of us was about this young girl who was violated by her uncle when she was a kid, when she was a child. And it took her 30 years to share with her family, with her parents, what her uncle did to her. And the reaction was just, the father just locked her in a room, punished her for what she did. So, and when we heard the story, it was so much overwhelming. Like, personally, I got super angry, but I couldn't make empathy with this girl, with this lady. And so we start making performances to make the empathy, to really understand what this person feels, what the father feels also, what the family feels, what different roles, what do they go through in this process. And first was a solo that we don't have any material of. And then let me show you some photos from this. When we were teaching in Jungle Dance, it's a dance center, a dance theater in Goa. And in their opening gala, they invited me and Julie to make a performance. We made the closing performance. And there we decided to work on this relationship with the father and daughter. So we just have very few images from this. I will show anyway, because the photographer didn't send us the images. Our idea was to find a way to transform the energy of this condition, this stuck condition, this social blind point almost, and transform into creative energy again. So how can we recycle this through our bodies, through our performances? So this was our research. And for this first part, you see, like, this is not Julie, this is me, this is Julie. So we started by exchanging the roles. I started as the daughter, and Julie started as the father. And we don't have any recording of this. We just have like this 4 photos. And after one point, we changed the clothes and we changed the roles. So Julie transformed into the daughter, and I transformed into the father, to see from the opposite side, to connect from the opposite side, to experience both sides at once. So this was kind of the process. Let me show you. You can see these images. We just have these 4 images, and they are thumbnails. Sorry, they don't have strong performance quality of photograph. One idea that we work with this thing is, like, for example, as a man, I have the female aspect, and my female aspect also has a male aspect. So this is the man, but inside this man there is a female aspect. And when you think the female aspect as an individual, then this female aspect has a male aspect. So it's like going deeper with under each layer. So that was our idea of working with it. There is this concept of anima and animus, but instead of thinking anima and animus, something that belongs to us, we treated them as individual characters, independent characters, and then we also explored their shadows.
Sort of allowed them to reveal themselves in different parts of the performance, in different ways.
And so this is not the project yet, so the project starts here, the photography project. And then the thing is, you know, like it is super difficult to process this. The one solo wasn't enough, our duet wasn't enough, so when we had the opportunity, we kept on working on this. And so for this presentation, I have this proposition. First, we will kind of describe what were we working on, each part, and show you the photographs. Some of them, for this part, we just have 11 photographs, but for some of them, there are like more than 100 photographs. So first we will see the photographs, and then we will open the space for free associations, however you perceive each image, and your questions, your comments. We have some things to speak of, but we will blend in. So if it's okay for you, or if you prefer, we can explain everything from the beginning also. But
That's boring.
you can decide. I think that's better. Like, okay. So this part, the project includes 5 parts, and we work with different photographers. And this part is called the dark matter. I will not explain more. So we were working on this idea of social bodies, like 3 aspects of social bodies. And one of them is the social masks, that whatever happens, that we have this tendency to bring a certain, you know, face to the society. And then there is the body that the body that ignores what it knows. Like, for example, in this case of sexual abuse, many people know what happens. Many people, they knew it years before, but they don't do anything. They don't give information to anyone, they just keep silent. So there is this social body that knows, but ignores, turns the other way. And then there is the body that experiences. So it cannot ignore because it already experienced. So I will just give this framework and just show you these 10 photographs. And anytime, if you have any comment, you can tell me to stop, and please let's make it interactive. So the photographer of this part is David de Souza. He's an Indian photographer that we work with Goa. He's an underwater photographer, as you can see.
Why did you choose to work underwater?
It's his idea. It's what he does. That's his venue. He has a swimming pool in his backyard. One end is black. This is the end we were working in. The other end is white. And he invites dancers to come and work with him underwater. And he saw our performance and invited us to come there.
And he was also the photographer of the first performances, the first photographs. It was also his photographs. But I think there is like a importance of this underwater condition, because it's like an aquarium, you know, like this, like fishes in the aquarium where you are in a place, captured and put into, then you cannot behave the same way, you know, like trapped animals, they don't behave the same way. So we can talk more about this. Also, like sometimes the family can turn into an aquarium, not all the time, but people can find themselves in these roles, in this role of a father, in this role of a mother. And when you're a kid, of course, you don't have any choice but to have the role of the kid. And it can be quite struggling for people, and when they feel they cannot really go out from this, it is not possible to leave this fish tank, you know, you are trapped, you cannot go, and then the powerful one can be a little bit damaging to the other ones. Also, like they observe this in the animals in the zoo. When you put animals in a zoo environment, then they tend to be more aggressive towards each other. They turn into bad parents. They become angry to their children, violent to their children. Even the animals which are very gentle, like wolves, they are super gentle, perfect parents. But when they are in a zoo, because it's limited, they are confined and they can't go out, then it becomes violent. And this is the one aspect of this fish tank, to remind this, to start inquiring in this environment where people are kind of trapped. Also, like, I think the sexual violence is a part of this, because our societies are kind of made of fish tanks. We are not ocean people anymore, we are aquarium people, so, you know, like, it changes the behavior.
Nuclear families.
Did you deliberately avoid filming it?
No, we did do a video of the original performance.
Yeah.
They did, in fact.
They did, but they somehow couldn't send it to us. I don't know. We never got it. We never received it.
Yeah, like we've
tried.
When we decided that we will present this, we asked them to send us again, you know, like, but they kind of didn't respond, so. But for these parts, I mean, we work with photographers, so, I mean, they weren't filmmakers. If they were filmmakers, this will be performance movies, so. So just notice there is this moments when the roles change. Like, now Julie is the feminine aspect of the father, and I'm the masculine aspect of the daughter. So it's not only a role change, but it's seeing the man within the woman and the woman within the man, and just questioning also these gender roles. Like, what is a man, what is a woman? I mean, because we, like, society tends to put this, not now, but before, especially now it's more transparent, but like, if you're a man, there is a box for you. I mean, you have to have certain appearance, woman has to have certain appearance, certain ways of behaving. How much is this natural? Maybe here, or anyway, we can talk later. Okay.
So it was one performance with this photo?
Like, it's not possible underwater to, because, you know, like, you can, there's a technical aspect, of course.
You have to breathe.
I mean, you have to breathe,
Go up and down.
You have maximum like 15-20 seconds underwater. But the thing is, you know, like, we had a very clear idea what we were working on. Like, we were already cooking this project, so it kind of, we tried to make the best of this short amount of time, but it was challenging in the beginning. So these are the photographs we have from this, and if you feel like saying anything with each picture or commenting, we have some things to tell.
I'm curious, what is it about the name, Dark Matters?
Dark matter, like, there's one reason is this is a dark matter for society. It's dark not because it's evil, but because there is no awareness the society ignores sexual abuse of children. This is what we saw. I mean, even many people see, many people saw, many people witness, many people know. Nobody speak, nobody does, so nothing happens. These people, he still has a school. The
People
school is
were
open.
divided about this issue. Friends divided. Friends said, well, I'm not going to be friends with you because of how you dealt with this. And people denied that it even happened and ignored it completely and said, well, I don't believe it because I didn't see it. I don't care if he did say he sexually abused 3 children from his own mouth. I don't believe it because I didn't see it. So there was a lot of ignorance.
So, yeah, one aspect is this, you know, like the society keeps on ignoring this, so it's always in the shadow. Even though there is evidence, even though there is a confession, even though people know, you know, like society doesn't have the capacity to deal with this, so this is one reason why it is dark, because there is no attention. Like now there is a pandemic and all the world is, you know, like, oh, put masks, you know, like, okay, you know, let's disinfect you and this and that. But what about this pandemic? I mean, this is a greater pandemic and it affects people's life much, much, much severely. Yeah, please.
It's also interesting that it's like you're told that it's not attention, but in other way, it's a lot of energy in this. It's
Yes.
just blocked.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like a lot of trapped social energy, social creative
Life
energy. And
That's why we named ourselves Buto Lantern, because of, what's his name?
Diogenes.
Diogenes, the philosopher, who was carrying a lantern one day, and someone asked him, why do you have a lantern? It's daytime. And he said, I'm searching for an honest man. So we took that theme and used it.
And one reason, like dark matter, is also like, you know, like the universe. There is the cosmological aspect. The universe consists of dark matter mostly, and this is the matter that creates, in fact, you know, light, life. So there is a lot of creative energy inside, and which was our idea. How can you turn this issue, which almost no attention, no awareness, into a creative, life-supporting process? So we also tried to always thought, how can we heal this process in us? How can I heal the inner feminine? How can we heal inner feminine, inner masculine? So
I have a question. If you consider this as a buto performance, and if yes, then what is the principle of buto here in this particular work?
I mean,
That's a good question.
like,
Or the aesthetics, you mean?
like for example, I don't really think about buto so much, although it is super inspiring for me, and I took a lot of tools from it. I share a lot of tools, but I think it's also good to forget about it when you are dancing, when you are performing. Like, because each art form has its limitations, has its possibilities. So it's good when you are working with the possibilities, but what happens when you reach to the limitation? Will you accept it because you are doing a buto dance? Or will you go further? So,
But do you consider this as a buto performance, or is it more just like a social performance for you?
I don't think we would have ever described it as anything other than us dancing underwater and using this theme of fathers and daughters and a healing, searching for some healing tool for ourselves and maybe for others who witness. I don't think about buto when I dance, and I don't think, oh, let's see, I could choose from these aspects of buto or this. Because of that's our background, I guess. That's why we are considered buto, which you don't even consider yourself a buto dancer, really. But
how do you feel? Like, how would you answer
What would
this
you say?
your own question?
I didn't do buto since a long time. But I mean, aesthetics is visually it's obviously for me, yeah. But of course, buto is something beyond visuals. so that's why I was asking you. And of course, it's very hard to say because I can't see the body in motion there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, this is
a photography project.
Performance photography project.
But then also my other question was, what was your? Did you consider a target group before you? Did you consider a certain kind of type of people you want to address it to, or was it more just part of your portfolio?
I guess for the photographer and the setting, we were thinking, but we also use these themes continually throughout, and we kind of knew in the beginning, let's deal with this aspect of this story from our friend, the story of the daughter, but definitely flavored by the experience we had just had at Subbody Buto, and the whole abuse and everything that went with it. And we wrote a lot, and we talked a lot, and we shared what we felt, and then we just danced. And these are all improvisations. This one was, I guess, more disjointed because of having to take breaths. The others that we will show you were continuous performances that were photographed by a photographer witness. We did not do them, we did one, the last one, for a huge audience of
we have
Indians.
some video to show also.
We do have a little bit of video from our last performance.
And like as of the target group, like it was kind of a necessity to do this because it was a very overwhelming process. So at one point, in order to not lose your mind, you know, like you have to do something. So one aspect was that. But I think like we had the feeling of like whoever can should see this, and it should be taught, you know. Like this should be a place, a space to talk about these things and to put awareness. So we didn't really specify.
The opening of the conversation about these subjects is the beginning of the healing process, I think. If we talk about it, it's not so taboo, it's not so in the dark. That brings light to the subject and opens it for others to acknowledge, to be aware, to understand maybe, and to help stop it. Or, you know, not that we're trying, you know, we're artists, we're not sociologists, but maybe the attention can be drawn to this topic. And
like I was working with an osteopath for my back, and from out of the blue she was sharing this scientific reality with me, and she said that when sexual abuse happens, then a woman becomes a victim of this. If she doesn't process this, she passes it over to her granddaughter. Not her daughter, but granddaughter. So it kind of skips one generation, but then as a genetic code, it is carried within our bodies. And she said, when some person finally decide to speak about it, like to really, you know, like this happened, this man, this to this person happened like this, and this is the time finally the energy is dissolved, you know, like this genetic code is broken and released finally. So
but they have really determined that genetic memory is a real scientific process in the world. People, usually through the grandchild, that's right. And that's a very interesting topic. You should look into this because it's been researched and studied, and it's there. And it sounds like strange voodoo magic to me, but it happens.
This is very connected with actually your buto classes.
Sorry?
This is, for me, it's very connected with your buto classes.
Yeah, I mean, like, because similar understanding and...
Yeah, score of work with dark points and release and
Yes, exactly.
We also work with water imagery a lot. And water is in every single one of these performances. There is a water element. that is visible.
So just here I want to, sometimes we can also like talk about the understanding of how we make the performance, and so there's this idea of overlapping totems, archetypes, subconscious processes onto human body. So the performing body is not a human body only, but it is overlapped by an animal force, by an archetype, or by some complex, some subconscious complex. So when you see one image, like there are many layers. Like here, for example, this body has a very distinct snake quality. So which kind of connects with this core life power, where this little girl is finally finding, you know, like finally connecting.
She's very curious about the snake.
So there are like small stories in each photographs, but maybe it's better not to manipulate too much. And one idea was like to merge like the masculine and feminine within ourselves and through each other. So it's no longer one's role, one part, but mixing the roles in both sides.
And the stories you were improvising them, the stories which is behind every photo, it was improvised?
Yes, it was improvised, but for each part we had an idea of what we wanted to work with.
And it's kind of difficult to get down underwater and to, you know, just technically difficult to do these and hold our breath long enough to get into the position. And we were kind of saying, okay, I'll get under you now, or I will go, and he was constantly saying, put your faces toward me. So there, you know, there's that aspect of us trying to use an image, dance, and breathe or not breathe, and put our faces toward the photographer. But I think some of them really work. And keep bubbles from getting in the way also.
How many times
we work a couple of hours. We make different sessions, like they are from different sessions. Like this is from another session, these two photographs. This is from another session. These two are the different session. This is another session. So there were a couple of different sessions.
And how it was for you in this kind of process, that it was cutting like all the time, performing?
It was, the first time is super challenging. Like when you first do it, I thought it won't happen. I mean, because I just cannot breathe, you know? It's like you go down and you try to breathe and it's,
yeah.
I mean, it's just, you know, like, but then it starts to work. Yeah,
and we got better at holding our breath.
Yeah, and I mean, did you feel like all this project like more like technical work?
No, it kind of,
you feel some,
It felt a lot
it worked.
of
It worked. Yeah.
And the more we did it, and the more we went down under the water, the more, you know, we were like, it became like this sea of emotional, of the dream world, the subconscious. You know, the danger is underwater, and yet it's buoyant. It brings up ideas. It brings up all the emotions. I mean, the water element, it's kind of my element, water, and I work with that. I teach something called Noguchi Taizo, based on the idea that the body is 70 to 80% water. And if you can learn to manipulate this living water bag through space, you can learn more about buto. This process has taught me a lot about dancing buto through my living water bag. And I was in a big old living water bag here. So this was...
And finally it was the photographer who said, you know, like, it's enough for today, let's finish it. We were ready to continue, what he said, we have enough, so.
And I know it was the photographer's venue, underwater, but it also, something I've been thinking about that makes sense with this idea of processing is it's so hard to speak underwater. It's almost impossible to speak in an audible way. I mean, you can yell and mouth words, but that's something I find intriguing with not being able to speak about it.
Exactly. I mean, we weren't thinking about this, but I think this is also a part of it.
Yeah.
Like the setting kind of brings that also. It is not a place that you can speak, and it is a realm of the subconsciousness. You know, like it is not. No one really knows what's really happening there. So there was this feeling of going into the subconscious realm where things are kind of locked down. They cannot surface. They are trying to surface, but they cannot surface.
And we can't stay down there long enough to process it to the end, in a way, too.
Wow.
So we can go to the other one. And for this one we work with Devідom Джошуа Jennings, very good friend of ours, and another photographer.
And this was in
Sanapura, Sanapura near Hampi.
This was a magnificent landscape. And this section is called Abandon.
Where was this?
Sanapura, close to Hampi. It's a village near Hampi. And like for this part, we were kind of inquiring what happens when a father decides to abandon his feminine aspect. Like when a father is completely disconnected from his feminine aspect, how it affects the relationship, how the relationship is transformed from here. And I will just make a slideshow, and then we can talk afterwards.
Yeah, and feel free to insert or ask questions also. He doesn't say anything, he just watches and documents. There's the water. This is a lake with crocodiles.
This is to men, yes? This is like to men.
Like there is always this transformation, like
We're
at one
always
point we,
between.
in fact, like this is the part where Julie is dancing the feminine aspect of the father and I'm dancing the masculine aspect of the daughter.
Would you be able to speak a little bit about the stick, or was it
Yeah, please.
something that was just choked?
What does it look like to you?
It looks quite phallic.
Oh, yeah. Anything else?
It looks like a penis to me. It's like an appendage of some sort.
Look at this rock over here also. We didn't know that at the time, but
Oh,
look at the little rock beside it. And I thought, well, when I was playing with it, it was a shield, part of it, just this dead stick.
Because there is this thing, of course, this process. I mean, we kind of, it's an improvise, these are all improvisations, so.
And we
just
found these things around on the ground and picked them up and changed clothes. I mean, this is kind of a continuous performance that he documents. He doesn't say a word, he just moves around and goes to different points and changes cameras really fast.
Like the stick can be a shield because like, this is also like you can see some overlapped image, like a man with a snake, you know, feeling and, you know, like watching this little girl, oh, you know, like some weak something, and it's her shield toward him.
She's playing real self-absorbed. She's paying no attention to the creepy snake. And also these big stones are sort of like eggs. Or we actually, I thought of that when we were on them. And I also thought of the stick as a speaking stick. You know, in some tribes and meetings, if you're holding the stick, you get to talk. And also as a divining rod. I don't know if y'all know, it's a stick will find water, that kind of thing, searching for the water, searching for maybe the truth, the deep emotions to come out. And this clinging to something that's dead, in a way, this with the stick. I'm really obsessed with it. And then I become a little more aggressive.
Or like clinging into something that cannot help you any longer. Yeah. Like this feeling, I think is also included.
Yeah. We're really intermingled here. We become really sort of bound up together.
Of course, like to remind, like it's not only about the story we told, it's a general inquiry into this relationship. So it's a lot of different fathers and daughters intersecting in our performance space, in our body. So it's not always very rational.
Yeah,
also
it's very abstract.
Just to remember that it's a performance.
It seems like there's no abuse in your performance, so it's like post-abuse, right? Or how is it? I mean, the abuse is like a background, and then the performance happens on the top of it, yeah? Or because inside, at least I can't sense like any kind of abuse.
Let's see the photographs and. We try to not make it like an agitation also, like to really agitate something, you know, like what to...
This looks...
From both sides. Looks like that.
So of course there is this aspect of the performance, you know, like that's what I told. It's not about agitation, it's about taking something back into life, like some stuck energy, how can I transform it, how can I put it back to recycling. So it's about also like a ritual of healing. So it's always about not agitation, this happened, how terrible, you know, like this, but how can I work with this energy and put it to circulation again?
And the idea of archetypes, of blending, overlapping archetypes and images and memories and totems and this sort of fusion of the genders. I mean, these were kind of themes we were looking at throughout this performance. With this story as a memory, maybe. And there are some healing moments, I feel like, some places where we become more entwined, more forgiving, more, at least we hear each other, or we're trying to hear, we're trying to communicate. And this landscape of desolation was kind of perfect. That was inspiring for this story as well. Our photographer searched out the landscape and said, "This looks good, and can you dance here?" And we said, "Sure."
I think this one we found, but the other ones he found out.
He found the others. That's true. We kind of said, "How about right here, up among these rocks?" And these boulders have been transformed into temples that are sitting on top of 10 rocks of all different sizes. There's a little temple on top. This is kind of the most, they're all golden. It's a magical, magical place.
So there are some photographs, we can just talk about some concepts. Like there is, for example, when we were seeing this photograph, we had this concept of undressing the social gender. Like how much of our behavior is a result of this social norms that we wear, and what happens when we take them off. How do the roles change? How do the behaviors change? How do the emotion change?
And the clothing dictates the role.
And this image also we can talk about. Like there is this feeling, like when we were again like seeing these photographs after a year or something, we realized, you know, like the girl here is like, she's like playful, like she's playing a game there, you know, like this desolate place. It's like her playground. But for the father, for the male character, he's going through his own fears. Like he's inside his own desolation. So there is not really a communication between the sides. I think this was quite apparent in these photographs. Like one part is thinking, you know, like of, you know, like it's a game we are playing together, and the other one is completely withdrawn, lost, you know, like cannot see. And I think this can be one aspect in the families, like this problem. People kind of are withdrawn in their own narratives, not only in families, I mean in all social life, but not really communicating with what the other person is going through. And I think like these images kind of inspired us to think about this. There's one funny story about this, and I need to share. Like our photographer, like after a day or so, he showed us these images, and he was also showing his other photographs, his projects throughout India and stuff. And when I saw this photograph, I thought he was photographing some gypsies. I didn't notice myself, and I thought, oh wow, what a gorgeous woman. And then I said, oh wow, it's me.
That's great. She is lovely, isn't she? Beautiful gypsy woman. Yeah, this one is feels like sort of capturing the wild horse. That idea of trying to hold on to wildness. We also started looking at, because we were in this beautiful landscape, the idea of civilization and nature, and how civilization has captured nature, and has also the idea that, and we'll talk more about it in another series, this idea of trying to hold on to wildness, of not being able to contain it also, and you know, holding on to a child, holding on to nature, enveloping it, squelching it, capturing it, taming it, and just keeping it under you, controlled. And we played with this quite a bit. Even in our first performance, we did this whole thing with that. It sort of started, and themes kept returning from the first performance, from the second performance.
And we also think like it feels like, for example, when a father or a man or woman, like when completely disconnected from the feminine aspect, then there's a, how to say, there is a need to possess the female, because you know, like inside it's so much marginalized, no connection, it's completely in the shadow. Then in the real life I have to capture, I have to keep,
to confine,
even though I don't feel, maybe it's not necessary, but to keep, to tame. And this is also like the behavior of our civilization. You take the animals, you put them into zoo, you know, so that I have them, you know, like, you don't need to have them, but, so it's kind of this alienation process we think is kind of triggering. So, shall we go to the next one?
Sure.
Do you guys need a break? How you feel? Sometimes it's overwhelming to see too many pictures. We can just make another slideshow. We may not be able to show all of them. I mean, we have a lot of photographs, but at least some parts we want to show. So this is the third part of the project, which is called Ongun. Ongun is a Turkish word, and we choose to use this word because it means bountiful, fertile, lucky, also an object with spirit, or like the ancestor of a clan, like a wind, thunder, or an animal or a plant, which the clan believes we originate from this. Our first ancestor was a wolf or was thunder. So also it means totem, so it has many meanings. And we kind of worked in this part, like the totem is kind of our deepest connection with life. It is where earth and human is the one entity. There is no separation. Earth process, human process the same. But when agriculture comes, then there is the alienation begins. So we tried to trace this relationship into that beginning. When this first separation, I have a land, although it looks beautiful, but it used to be a forest probably, you know. So this idea of beginning of the ownership, how did it transform the mind How did it cause an alienation process? And how does these archetypes and the totems are in conflict? And how can we harmonize them? So we had this kind of idea. And this is our solos, Julie's solos and my solos. If you feel like talking about any of them, you can stop us, because I think we won't have enough time for all of them. So we will just run through to show the photographs and a little bit talk about.
So this abuse topic was the start point from which you go to different aspects, yeah?
Yes, we kind of checked it, like this behavior of violating the other, like how does it have its roots in this setting? When the forest is gone and now there's a field and there's one person who owns the field, and then he owns the kid, he owns the woman, or vice versa. Maybe it was different in the matriarchal time also. Maybe then was the woman owning the man, I don't know. But how did this first idea of ownership divided our souls, like psyches?
Yeah, and also for me, there was an element of this triple goddess kind of figure of going through virgin, mother, crone, within this dance. Was sort of a little playful girl in the beginning, and also maybe the pulling down into the farm setting, into the water, into the earth, becoming a plant, becoming owned, becoming less wild, less free, becoming tamed.
Also, notice there's the continuation of the water image. Like in the previous one, it was very peripheral, but it was a very dangerous water. There was crocodiles inside, and now it's used utilitarian. This water is not in its source. It brought from very far away to just, to feed these farms.
And those two trees always there, just a remnant of the primeval forest that was there 500 years ago.
So when you really try to track the violence, the roots of violence, then you realize it's everywhere. Like the city setting used to be some other vegetation, and everything was removed. All the animals were cast away. Maybe there were some tribes, and they were kicked out. And we are born here. We are born in the city. We have no idea. This is all working in the subconsciousness.
But do you think there were no violence like this in the previous times?
I mean, the violence is of course always there, but it is not to devastate the other. It is to prevent yourself, or it is for food, Like we have in documentaries, you see all these animals all the time, biting, they're looking for killing. But in the real world, it's not like that. I mean, even these predators, when they need to find food, they are very picky. They choose the sick one. The wolves always choose the sick. When they search the animals that the wolf kills, there's always parasites. They're already infected. So in the real life, the violence has a purpose, and it's limited at one point. If you start violating an animal's land, then he won't be angry to you anymore. It's not out of nothing. So you can see why this animal is angry. One time I was in a forest and I came by a baby viper, a poisonous snake, and I was this far, and it was completely okay with me, and I sat there. But when I got close, it immediately became like this, you know, like, then it's ready to defend itself. The violence is there to protect, but if I keep my distance and if I'm neutral, if I'm okay, then the human violence is more complicated, and because there is this containment, there is this fish tank, you know, where the behavior is not natural anymore.
So anybody have any comments about any of those? No. Thoughts, questions?
I'm curious to see where you set.
Is there a chronology in these photos? Is it like...
It's the order that it's a performance. I pretty much, he said, can you just travel from this point, from right there, yeah, that's good, up to me? And he stood on the little lane for the rice paddy. Mm-hmm. And that was the structure of the dance, and I guess I danced for about 45 minutes.
Yeah, it was quite some time.
It was a 45-minute, and I went through an amazing process. It was a dance. I mean, that's kind of the way he works. You make a dance, and he documents. And he's very good. He's just taking pictures constantly. And then moving quick.
Did you choose them together, or did he only choose you?
Huh?
This part he found, like this setting.
He found this
No, I mean, did you choose the photos together?
No, he just sent us all of the photos he took. Yeah, there was no choosing. And it's like, for example, before we begin, we talk like in this part also with the photographer. You know, like we are working with the archetypes, how they conflict with the totem, how can we harmonize, overlap them. So he knew what we were working on also.
And this idea of the like primitive earth cultures and civilization, the split is so prominent here. We keep going back to that, the loss of the totems.
So like, what I really tried was to, like, the totem is like a very big power, but this power, like in the primitive societies, is absorbed by the clan. The clan absorbs the power of the totem, and when the clan doesn't exist anymore, the power is still there, but then it is not absorbed, it's loose. So it's unleashed without control, and it can turn damaging. It's also the same with the earth process. You know, when there is a forest to absorb the climate, the condition of climate, then the climate is less damaging. But when you remove the forest, then all this earth power becomes out of control. You know, it's the same power, no one adds new power to earth, but when you remove some element, then some uncontrollable force is unleashed. So I was trying to connect with this force and little bit make it peace with these archetypes. When this first behaviors, when the forest is removed and the land is made, the agricultural land is made. So, and also like, this is a part where I work on connecting the masculine and feminine very, very strongly, going deep into that. It looks a little bit like gypsy figure, and I think there is, throughout the project, there is this gypsy feeling, people without home, nomads.
Liminality,
kind
being
of
on the
earth
edge
people,
of society.
but not really also. So this is about this power which is unleashed, which cannot be absorbed, and also about the people who try to absorb it, who confront it already.
Finding a similarity between this agricultural almost abuse of the land, or changing of the land, displacement of the land, and then how someone, when they're going through a cycle of abuse, can be displaced and often put on the edge of their own society or community.
Yeah, yeah.
Their own selves.
and their own selves.
Yeah, that's also right. This is kind of like in the modern sense now this is the edge where we see like when we were doing this performance we thought like this is the center, but you're also right. When you think like today's world, these fields are the edge. Like it's already the edge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is one aspect, there is this lament to the forest that doesn't exist there anymore. And then, you know, like when the violence is too strong, we were talking about this also, I think we worked with this concept in our congruent performance, like uniting masculine and feminine through insanity. We were working on this idea. And about this process, when the violence is too strong, you cannot integrate it without going insane. Like insanity is almost the part of the process because the violence is too much for one person to process. So this insanity as a part of processing, like also the mental issues are kind of put to the edge of the society, but it's a part how society processes the violence it embodies. Some people has to process it and it's too much for them, so it's just because the society never works with processing this kind of things, never processing the violence it creates.
And there's also this, we sort of saw this when we were looking at these. There's this aspect of him that goes from totem to scarecrow.
Yeah.
Which was a real kind of powerful image that we, you know, maybe he didn't know that when he was dancing it, but it becomes embodied when we see the photographs. And the giant stones are still, the ones they couldn't remove are still in the middle of the rice paddy. So those are elements of, and these giant trees that sort of linger at the edges. And it's another magnificent setting, very close to where those huge stones are. It's in the middle of the huge stones.
So this is one idea of the scarecrow. When we were looking at this, we said, oh wow, this is a very scarecrow quality. And how like a image of power, like a totem, like all the everybody has this totem poles where their power elements are put on top of each other, and like everybody is, you know, like it is something that gives you power. And how this image transformed in the agriculture society to a scarecrow. You know, you just have something like that looks like half human just to scare the birds away. So this transformation of powerful images
into this used clothing displayed.
Which is also quite beautiful.
Which is quite beautiful, many of them, yeah.
And how is your perception of the water in this piece compared to, like, it's like the opposite almost of the swimming pool, yeah? So here you're almost like not allowed to touch the water.
Yeah, exactly. Like the swimming pool, it was like an aquarium. Like the previous one, it was a water with alligators, so it was a dangerous place. And this is a water brought in for a specific purpose. The water doesn't originate here, it's far away, it's brought in to water this plants, and yes, you cannot step on it, then the owner would be quite furious with you. So it's a utilitarian water, maybe,
right. Yeah.
Functional water.
Creating food, feeding the food.
And how is important for you to have this meaning, exactly the meaning you were putting behind this, you know, like, because I look at this and if you didn't mention the context, I would never thought about this exactly context. And so I find these photos are very expressive in their like abstract way and really beautiful, like from many concepts of movement and photography aspect. But also, like for me, it's difficult actually to connect with this topic of because my personal attitude to this topic about nature and civilization is like let's say I don't see it this way, you know, like because but also for me it's I like for example I see that we all use some things out of civilization like electricity now, you know, and so when I don't like some things like destroying forests, I also see that this forest was destroyed in some way because now I have a lifestyle I get used to have like electricity. So I don't, but for me even not this is interesting in context of your photos, but for me these photos wouldn't, like I have my opinion on things and they don't influence my opinion on the things I have, but they express you in some other way. And how for you, is it important that this context you made it with, the thoughts you had in mind when you were dancing it, is it important for you to like to show it, to transport, like to focus on it, your audience?
Yeah, I think it's more important, like each person should of course perceive their own way. That's why we asked in the beginning, you know, how should we do it? But we don't have time, so we kind of ended up explaining stuff. But I think most important is how you see the photos. I mean, we also could just show the photos and not tell anything. Maybe that would be also some interesting thing. So it's like each person's perception. That's the important thing. You don't have to see what I'm telling, or what is important for me may not be important for you. That's not the case, I think. Each person should take. That's why it's interesting to see how you read it, how you feel it. For us.
Like this way, so here they're all about some really difficult and very multi-dimensional topics here. So this is not about to show some point of
not
view,
really.
but not about some. But this is about some like honest reflection, and also this very multi-level, multi-dimensional ways.
That's the thing. I mean, it's not like this is not sociology or psych. This is performance. So we kind of try to draw the context because that was what it caused the performances. But
in this case, I mean, in some performance, really, when you read the title of performance, it makes much more sense, you know, when you like know some
you have
idea.
a context.
Yes, and in some, it's like can be detached. And yeah, so for me, in the
how do you read it? For example, you know, like forget about the title and everything, and for you, like how do you read it?
I can't even say it. It's for me powerful in terms it's like personally expressive, but I can't say that it's not about this social phenomenon, but about about some other very precise things. I like that it creates in me some kind of this expressiveness. It's I don't know, like. Also this context that it's one person and a lot of space around, something about some inner travels, you know, inner search. For me it's like I see it in more like abstract way.
Yes, perfectly fine. And the thing is, you know, like when you perform, it's all about the performer anyway. I mean, you cannot make it other ways, even though you are working on some context. Finally, it is always your material, so This is, I think, unavoidable.
Those gender things also for me, like it's clear, like this place that this, your characters that they're not defined, that also attracted.
It's transforming. Yeah, it's not fixed.
I think we can just continue and let them roll.
Yeah.
And in some photos I even couldn't believe that it was a documentary photography, like that it's really some person, you know, like this documentary photography who is focusing on some marginalized social groups.
Oh.
Not marginalized in terms of like class, but some unaccepted behavior.
Yes, yes. So we have a lot of photographs to go. How do you guys feel? Like maybe the rest we can show it another day, or we can just leave it on the slideshow, and if anybody wants to talk, the slideshow can continue. How do you guys feel?
I think it's nice to just put it on.
Okay.
And start.
Last your image that you already closed. In some moment I interpreted it like your Mother Earth dancing and showing all feelings about what happened here.
So yeah, I would like to make a comment.
So
what I see a motif with buto and buto-inspired dances is it's not always literal. It's like a dream, and somebody might interpret a dream to mean something totally different than what someone else would think the dream means.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times there's a theme and it's the catalyst, and then what happens, just as long as you're real and authentic to your body, that's all that matters. There was a theme, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be like mine, where I'm going to show you exactly what is in my mind, because the mind is not so simple. It's multifaceted. It's like a dream. Many things happening, many memories, so many things. So just this is
many transformations.
Transformations is a multidimensional dance. So it is not one-to-one correspondence sort of thing.
Yeah, when we give the workshops, I always mention this idea of a body as a multi-dimensional dance space, multi-dimensional theater, where many things going on at the same time, different parts experiencing different memory, different emotions, transformations, different characters embodied. So this idea of a multi-centered, multi-layered body as a dancing space, as a theater space.
And I did a sort of campesino farmer character here, as well as it became a tribute to my master teacher Yoshito Ono, who had just died a few days before
we did this
performance. So the masculine aspect, as well as a requiem for Yoshito Ono.
This was also photographed by Devidom Joshua Jennings, and this one also. This is called The Well, and let's not talk about this then, and just let the photographs rolling.
This was taken in a step well in the ruins of Hampi.
So it's a kind of archaeological site. Let me see, sorry. This is not the beginning, sorry.
Very interesting place. What is it?
Yeah, we accidentally find it. I mean, we were thinking about another place, but then accidentally we find this. Sorry?
Also there's water.
There's water at the bottom.
Yeah.
Yep.
Almost dried well, but
almost
yeah,
dried up.
something there.
It's green with algae.
Laundry place.
Yeah, it's like golf club.
Can be, yeah, maybe.
Isn't it meant to come out of that thing that you're
Yes.
dancing below?
Yes.
Sorry?
The water pours through that.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah,
spigot.
exactly.
This looks like a kind of Noguchi concept. You're instead of the water.
Yes.
Just the water backs.
We're drawn downward to the water.
No.
Here's the water. Plastic bottles in it.
Эстетически это все очень круто смотрится. Да.
So aesthetically it looks very good.
Но хотите ли вы, ожидаете ли вы какой-то реакции, фидбэка или ответов какого-то? Нашли ли вы какие-то инструменты для того, чтобы...
Do you expect a specific reaction or feedback, and did you find any instruments for?
Для того, чтобы вот как раз лечить эту энергию, для того, чтобы эта энергия могла высвобождаться. Просто экспериментировали ли вы для себя, или это было все-таки для той девушки, или вообще для людей, которые это пережили, или для того, чтобы просто распространить эту информацию?
So was it for, did you experience it only for yourself, or for the girl who experienced it, or for spreading information, or also for other people that experience the same?
So like the thing is, like as a performer, you can only work with your own body. So this is the fundamental reality. I mean, even if you like how to reach the other person, it's almost impossible. So what we tried to do, because we were kind of encountering this condition, and it was quite difficult us to deal with it. So how can we transform this super difficult condition, this almost suffocating condition, into some creation? So this is a personal thing. You cannot make a dance and make it a social process, because dance is in the body. So this is about our process. This is one aspect, but the tendency is to put light on this social issue also. Since we are showing it, we are sharing it, to create a space
to open this subject.
To open this subject and show our process, how we could deal with it in an artistic way.
I don't think we ever hoped for change or thought that we could change anything with art. How much art has changed the world?
But it's helped us to process it.
Helped us personally.
It helped us to overcome many things. So this is what we are sharing, our process of dealing with it. So, yeah.
And it's like for me, I feel that it's ongoing process. So we don't have point of healing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It's very interesting because it somehow comes from this man, right? I mean, from Mr. Lee, or which was his name?
Yeah.
Yeah. So as far as I remember, he said that he incorporated this experience of violating children into his own dance.
Yeah, that's what he said. Yeah.
Before you found out it, did you sense anything? Like, was it something for you in his dance, or he was your teacher, I guess, for some time, right?
Like the thing is, of course, you know, like the thing is about how much you expect from the other person. Like I never would have thought about it. Of course, you realize there are some strange things. He has some issues, you know, very clear issues with women. Sometimes it becomes very visible in the space. And he says he's working with his problems, and he talks about his childhood and his when he was a rebel against the system and this and that, how he was dying, his friends were dying. But I never thought about this kind of thing, so it was quite shocking, because I was teaching there for 2 years, and I was there 11 years ago for 6 months to learn, to study. So it was quite shocking. And the thing is, you know, like it was the first time, at least in my knowledge, that a person I know, whom I called a friend, whom I called a colleague, had this kind of who was the violator. So that was very difficult to. The first days were very devastating. I mean, it was like a nightmare. It was like, you know, we found ourselves. We were together with Adam and Julie, like you know, you find yourself in this tunnel, dark, no direction, no nothing, and you may not go out of it. You know, it was this kind of feeling. You don't know how to deal with it. What can you do with it? You know, so. But of course, maybe more experienced person in this kind of issues, if he met this person 5 years ago, he would feel something, he would suspect something. Because where the school is in a village, and I honestly don't think anything can be kept secret in a village for 20 years. It was 20 years almost, so people knew, his students knew, some of his assistants knew, so.
The fish, if you see the fish on the edge.
Kind of connects it with the first one in the aquarium.
Yeah.
Another aquarium this time.
Aquarium.
Dried aquarium.
I think the context was important to us. I mean, the photographs are lovely. David did a wonderful job, but it wasn't about us just putting on costumes and dancing around in these beautiful settings. I mean, it was a lot deeper than that for us, was a part of that whole process of healing ourselves from this situation in India. This is also at the Calcutta International Performance Art Festival.
So this is near the Ganga River, some Gange River. We performed near a ghat, and this is the closing part of the performance. And Anastasia was planning to take the photographs, but she was performing also at the same time, so it was just randomly photographed by some of our friends. These are from Perre Estadellою. We have very few photographs from this one, but we will show you some small video, audience video. This was near a temple, a hermaphrodite temple. This is in Calcutta, and like there is these idols who were like very femininely dressed, you know, like but they have mustaches, and this Shiva statues in the garbage, which were rotting, but it was also a temple, but a temple with a garbage inside, so there is this Kali feeling in the town, where everything, garbage, the spirituality, the gender, everything is kind of blended in. So this is where we are performing.
And crematoriums.
And crematoriums around. And this was a public performance, the only public performance we made in this project. And we ended up in the Ganga. So just 2 more photographs to show you, and then we show a small video. And this photograph is from Abhijit Ray. He was also a performance artist.
Nice sort of layered image of the
Sorry.
Really shows how intertwined you can be, the closeness.
And this is from François Fleury. And we have one very short.
And that's interesting, that photograph, because that's how we ended our first performance.
Oh, really?
Embracing.
Oh, wow.
Remember that? We don't have a video, but I do remember that moment.
Moment. This is where the place where they make their pujas and cleaning, ceremonial cleaning, bathing places.
There's a lot of performance art going on all around us. Let's not get too close. Here we are. We think that's what's kept us from getting COVID. Swimming in the Ganges.
And why did you decide to do it there?
Sorry?
Why did you decide to do it there?
Just drew us somehow.
Because this there was this hermaphrodite temple there, which was almost what we were working on. You know, like this gender issue, how the genders transform into each other what is gender, you know, it felt like it was a temple for that, so it was very powerful. It was a super emotional place. I mean, we were hooked when we were there. All the imagery around, you see, it was super dirty, garbage, but inside this garbage there's this buste of Shiva. One part is rotting because it's earth, and the other part is super beautiful. And then, you know, like there is this place, all the opposites were intersecting. And then there was the river, and we thought there was this evolution of water throughout the performance, and this is the place where you start in a aquarium, a fish tank, and then you bring everything to the river, you know, like...
And it flows to the sea.
To the ocean,
there's a sort of sense of opening, a sense of cleansing, a sense of healing when it goes to the sea.
It was a super dirty water, but
Yeah.
it was flowing water, so also kind of it's connected with what we were doing, you know, it's not pure, but at least it's we